Welcome to the last video of Chapter 1, which is Section 7. In this video, we will be finding perimeter, circumference, and area of various polygons. So first thing we're going to talk about is we're going to look at the 4 different shapes and the formulas for perimeter and area, and then we'll do some examples. A lot of these formulas you should already know, but there might be a few new ones. So let's just jump right into the formulas. You can see that there's 4 shapes we want you to know in this section: a rectangle, a square, a triangle, and a circle. You probably already know how to find the perimeter and area of many of these shapes. For each shape, we're going to draw a figure and then write a formula for the perimeter and the area. Rectangle, as you know, is a 4-sided figure. It has 4 right angles. Also, you should know that opposite sides are congruent. Normally, this side would be called the base, and this one would be called the height. Sometimes we call them length and width, base and height. Either one works. To find the area of a rectangle, you will add up the sides. So you're going to add up the length of all the sides. In this case, we would have the base, add the height. Please remember that there are 2 bases and 2 heights. So if we have one base, the opposite side is the other base. If we have one height, the opposite side is the height. So sometimes people forget that a rectangle has 4 sides and they only add up 2 of the sides. So just remember to add up all 4. If we're talking about area is going to be base times height. You might also see it written as length times width. That is the same. Now a square, our next shape, is a specific kind of rectangle. It still has 4 right angles like a rectangle does, but all of the sides are the same. I normally call each side S. Perimeter is the same. You're going to add up the sides. Now in this case, all the sides are the same, so you could add up all 4 sides, or what you also could do is you could take 4 and multiply it by the side length. So this is not something you need to memorize. You should already know to find the perimeter you want to add up the sides. So don't worry about memorizing this formula, just worry about adding up the sides. Area, again, is base times height. In this case, though, the base and the height are the same, so often we write S times S, or S squared. So take one of the sides and square it. Now triangle, I'm sure you've seen the formulas for triangles before. You might have forgotten them though. If we draw in our triangle, the 2 lengths that are important are the base and then the height. Now what's important about the height is that it forms a right angle with the base. So sometimes students use the wrong side as the height. You have to remember that the height and the base are perpendicular. So for the perimeter, again, you're going to add up the sides. Now this one could be a little bit tricky because oftentimes all the sides are going to be different. You have that side there, you have that side there, and then you have that side there. So you're going to add up those 3 sides. Now the height does not come into play with perimeter. So the height in this case is not a side, so you're not going to use it. Area of a triangle, it's like a rectangle. It's going to be base times height except 1/2. Or you might remember it as base times height divided by 2. Last figure that we're going to be talking about is a circle. These might be the formulas that are a little bit newer to you. So just to recall, circle is not a polygon because it does have a curve. So your circle is going to look like this. If you draw in that segment right there, so the segment that goes from the center of the circle to the outside, that's called the radius. Okay, so the perimeter of a circle actually has a special name. It's called the circumference. So anytime you are asked to find the circumference of a circle, just remember that's the same as perimeter. Circumference of a circle, you're going to take 2 pi and you're going to multiply it by r. Now another way that you might see this is pi times d. Now if you remember, diameter goes from one side of the circle to the other. So that should make sense. If I double the radius, that 2r gives me the diameter. So either of these are appropriate formulas to use for circumference. Area of a circle is pi r squared. Now a little bit about our expectations for a circle. We do not want you to multiply by pi. So if I tell you, for example, that the radius of a circle is 5, and I asked you to find the area, you would do pi times 5 squared. 5 squared is 25, so you would just leave your answer like 25 pi. This is called an exact answer. So on your classwork, anytime you see exact answer, what I'm telling you is just leave the pi attached. I don't want a decimal. So don't try to do 25 times pi in your calculator or longhand, just leave your answer in terms of pi. And the same thing is true of circumference. Okay, before we jump into a few examples, I just want to let you know you will be expected to have these formulas memorized. So on your quiz and on your test, you will not have a formula sheet. Most of these shouldn't be new. So there's only a few that you probably need to memorize. Okay, we're going to jump in right with example 1. Triangle QRS has vertices Q at 1, 2, R at 4, 6, and S at 5, 2. What is the approximate perimeter of triangle QRS? Okay, so before we do anything, what we should probably do is draw a figure. So let's not jump into any calculations. Let's just draw a figure so we know exactly what we're looking at. So Q is the point 1, 2. R is 4, 6. And then S is 5, 2. Okay, so this is the triangle that we are looking at. We need to find the perimeter of that triangle. Okay, perimeter of a triangle from above, we need to add up the lengths of the sides. That means we have 3 sides we need to find. We need to find QR, we need to find RS, and we need to find QS. The easiest one to find first is going to be that QS. What you should notice is that QS is a horizontal line. Anytime you have a horizontal or a vertical line, you can just count the boxes to figure out how long this is. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So QS has a length of 4. Again, that only works if you have a vertical or a horizontal line. So if you have a line that's slanted like QR and RS, there's not boxes to count. So if I were to look at QR instead, I'm going to have to do the distance formula. Distance formula will tell me what the length is between the 2 points. Probably should write down what the distance formula is to start, just to remind us. It's the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Okay, so if we're using Q and R, maybe Q I call 0.1 and R I call 0.2. It doesn't matter which one is 1 and 2 as long as you're consistent. So if I do x2 minus x1, I'm going to have 4 minus 1 squared. And then I'm going to do y minus y, so 6 minus 2 squared. 4 minus 1 is going to be 3 squared. 6 minus 2 will give me 4 squared. So this is 6, not 16, sorry. That 3 squared is going to be 9. That 4 squared is 16. I was getting ahead of myself. So this is the square root of 25. That tells us that QR has a length of 5. Okay, so far we have 2 of the sides. We're also going to need to find side RS. You're going to do it the same way except using different points. If I find RS this time, maybe I call S 0.1 and R 0.2. Again, it doesn't matter which point is 1 and which one is 2 as long as you stay consistent. If I want to subtract 0.2 minus 0.1, I'm going to have 4 minus 5 squared, and then y minus y, so 6 minus 2 squared. That 4 minus 5 will be negative 1. 6 minus 2 will be 4. Okay, here's where we need to be careful. Negative 1 squared is positive 1, not negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 1 would give us positive 1. And then 4 squared would be 16. So finally, we get an RS of the square root of 17. Okay, we are not done yet. I know that that was a lot of work, but we need to answer our final question. So the final question was, add up the sides. So the perimeter is going to be that side of 4, add that side of 5, add that square root of 17. Okay, in this case, 4 and 5 are like terms. Those are going to give us 9 plus the square root of 17. That is our perimeter. I know that we don't like when answers look like this, but that's okay. This is called the exact answer. Now, I might also ask you for an approximate perimeter. If I ask you for an approximate perimeter, you're going to actually have to put that into your calculator and see what you get. You type in exactly how it looks, 9 plus the square root of 17, and you get about 13.12 units. So you do have an example like this on your classwork tomorrow. So if you have any questions, please make sure you ask. Please make sure you pay attention in the directions to what you are asked for. Are you asked for an exact answer or an approximate answer? Okay, going on to example 2. The circumference of a circle is 24 centimeters. Find the area of that same circle. Okay, circumference, remember? That's the same as perimeter. We say circumference for a circle, though. Okay, what we know from above is that our circumference is 2 pi r, or pi times diameter. I'm going to use 2 pi r, though. So what we have is a circumference of 24 is equal to 2 pi r. We are asked for the area. Area is pi r squared. So we need to find the radius. So we're given a circumference. We need to find the radius, which we can then use to find the area of a circle. Okay, so going back to our 24 equals 2 pi r. We need to find the radius, so I'm going to start by dividing by 2. So I get 12 equals pi times r. If I divide by pi, I get a radius to be 12 over pi. Now, I would prefer that you leave your answer like that. If you get a decimal right now, what you're going to do is you're going to end up with an answer that's a little bit wrong because you're rounding that decimal. So use this as your radius. Now, if I find the area, my radius is 12 over pi. Okay, so I'm going to keep the pi. 12 squared is 144. And then you have pi squared. Okay, at this point, you can go to your calculator. So what you're going to do is you're going to type it in exactly how it looks. You're going to type in the pi using the pi button. You're going to type in 144 divided by pi squared. And you get an area of about 45.84 centimeters squared. Okay, this is an approximate area because I rounded the decimal. Please remember units. Anytime that you're doing area or perimeter, we expect you to provide units. If you have questions, please make sure that you ask tomorrow. So that's area of a circle. We have a few more examples to do on the next page. Looking at example 3, the area of a rectangle is 18 square inches. The length of the rectangle is twice its width. Find the dimensions. Okay, so when we're talking about dimensions, we are looking for the length and the width. First thing we know is that the area is 18 square inches. And we know that the length is twice the width. Okay, so area, that 18, we know is length times width. Now, we don't know the length or the width. So at this point, we can't solve this equation. Can't solve it because we have two different variables. But we do know this relationship between the length and the width. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw myself a rectangle. And now I have my length and I have my width. Okay, so then here's what's important. The length is twice the width. So if I'm finding the length, it's twice the width. I'm taking the width and I'm multiplying by 2. So instead of length, I can do twice the width. Now that's helpful. If I go back to this formula, I have 18 equals. The length now I know is twice the width. And then I have the width. This now has one variable. We can solve this. Simplifying on that right side. 2w times w, well, w times w is w squared. If I divide by 2, I get 9 equals w squared. To get rid of that squared, you're going to take the square root. Square root of 9 is 3. Now, please remember to answer the question. Question asked us for the dimensions. So we get the width is 3 inches. The length is twice the width, so the length is 6 inches. Now, please make sure that that makes sense. You're told that the area is 18, so do a little bit of mental math. Yes, that will still give us an area of 18. Okay, example 4. Find the area of a square with a perimeter of 70. Find the area of a square with a perimeter of 70. I'm going to set this one up, and then hopefully you can do it. If we draw ourselves a figure. Remember on a square that all the sides are the same. So maybe we'll mark each side S, since we don't actually know what a side is. That perimeter of 70 happens when you add up the sides. You are asked to find the area. Area is the side squared, or side times side. So what you're going to have to do is use that perimeter of 70, find the length of a side, and then find the area. Take a minute and pause the video and try this problem on your own. Okay, hopefully you tried this one. You should have gotten an answer of 306.25 inches squared. If you got an answer of 17.5, that means that you found one of the sides, but then you never found the area. When you come to class tomorrow, your teacher expects that you will have this problem completed. If you don't, you will not receive full credit. Okay, so this video was a short introduction to perimeter, circumference, and area of polygons and circles. You are expected to do these last two problems. So you must do this objective problem and extra example number 1. If you do not do extra example number 1, you will not receive full credit. Good luck.